From NJ.com, this is Talk is Cheap, a New York Giants podcast. We're talking Big Blue football all year round.
What's going on, everybody? Zack Rosenblatt back here with the latest episode of the Talk is Cheap podcast. I'm here with Darryl Slater. This is a podcast where we only cover teams that are in contention for the NFC East title. What do you think when you hear me say that? It's just
you're going to get a lot of people clicking off within 25, 26 seconds here at the start of the thing. So that's
hey, I've seen a lot of Giants fans that are like crazy optimistic all of a sudden.
Thanks for the 6 people that were listening before, and now it's down to 3 after you said that. Mathematically,
yeah. It's the NFC East is. I mean, it feels like every year there's like a division where everybody probably overreacts, but this feels like as bad as I can ever remember a division being. Like none of these teams look anything like a team that deserves to even be mentioned next to the word playoffs, let alone like the Giants are 1-5 and they're talking about, you know, the team is talking all about like how they have the whole season in front of them and all this stuff. Like most teams when they start 0-5, like it's done, you're over. But
yeah.
like and the Giants, like talent wise, and I mean even that Sunday game, I know you and I didn't. I'm guessing a lot of other people didn't walk out of that game on Sunday against Washington thinking, you know what, the Giants actually have a chance. Like they did not look good. They probably shouldn't have won the game. The offense still wasn't very good. They only won because of the defense, and even the defense only almost blew it at the end. And then Ron Rivera decided to go for 2 for the win for some reason. Gotta respect the riverboat. And then the Giants won the game 20-19 against a Washington team that might be one of the very few teams that are worse talent-wise than the Giants.
Look, I mean, mathematically, if my wife and I decided to have another kid, mathematically, we could have sextuplets. What is that, 6 or 7? But that would be a nightmare. That would be awful. And I think similarly, if the Giants, I just thought of this, if the Giants make the playoffs at 5-11 or 4?
Oh God, yeah.
We were talking about this last night. Also awful because
that's like a bad scenario for them,
right? Because it's like it could happen, but it's bad because drop in the draft order. That's really the reason why it dropped in the draft order. Maybe it gives you false hope. You keep Dave Gettleman. Look, they're not making the playoffs with that record. Probably ultimately in the end, the division champ wins 6 or 7 games. It'll wash out like that. I don't think the Giants are going to get there, so it's a moot point. But yeah, sure, you'd expect the players to have that outlook. I mean, it's interesting to hear that this team talk versus the Cowboys, who are the Cowboys still in first place in the division?
Yeah, they're the only team with 2 wins,
and they're imploding. And they're obviously
they're talking to the press about how bad of a coach Mike McCarthy is, and the way if you just even look at the quotes, like the on the record quotes, it's just like the season's already over for them.
I know, it's crazy, and it's really not. And they could win the division. They're definitely the most talented team, even still without Dak Prescott, right? Or maybe the Eagles, I guess.
I mean, at least offensively they are. Yeah. I mean, the Eagles are so injured to the point where like I don't even know if you can say that about them. Like it just it's the crazy part. Like I was on a radio. We're recording this on Wednesday morning. I went on a radio station in Philly this morning, and they were like, "So who would you say is like the favorite to win the division at this point?" I'm like, "Is nobody an option?"
Yeah.
I don't know how to answer that. I said the Eagles just because in theory, if they get healthy, like they have some talent on defense. Carson Wentz is healthy. Maybe they get Deshaun Jackson back and Zach Ertz or whatever. Like that, like I only say that reluctantly.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's a weird year and a weird division. I mean, this division has been bad recently too. I mean, so it's not like it's anything new, but the Giants have to focus on more micro stuff than winning the division, and they are, and we'll get to that.
Joe Judge is good at that, I would say.
Yeah, and then that has to be their focus, is getting better every week, because like you said, I mean, they probably should not have won that game last week against Washington. And so the fact that they won almost masks a lot of the issues that continue to be problematic.
And weirdly, even though it's like a road game and there's going to be some fans, I feel like the Giants, like the short week actually helps them maybe a little more than the Eagles just because of how banged up the Eagles are. Because you have a lot of, like Miles Sanders isn't going to play this week. I don't think Deshaun Jackson's like a lock. Alshon Jeffrey. The Eagles are so banged up. Like Lane Johnson might not play. if the Eagles, all these players aren't playing for them, that gives the Giants a better shot.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think this is a Giants team. I wrote this coming out of Sunday's game that it really has to have a lot of stuff break their way, and they got to
Yeah.
win ugly and low scoring, and that's okay. They don't need to apologize for that. This is a team that doesn't have a lot of talent, and they're still rebuilding. So no one expects them to go out there and blow the doors off a team that is fully healthy and has superior talent. So they shouldn't apologize for the Eagles' injuries. So look, I think the Eagles, probably better team even with the injuries, but
Yeah.
It'll make it a closer game on Thursday night. So maybe worth staying up for people who didn't want to stay up for the game late. So there's look, you think like you look at that matchup and you say, oh, Thursday night game between a team that's 1-5 and 1-4-1. I'm not staying up for that game. Well, between the Eagles' injuries and the fact that the division is now wide open, maybe you will stay up and watch it.
I think I know a bunch of Giants fans that are like paying the exorbitant amount of money it takes to go to the game too.
Good Lord, what's the ticket cost?
It's got to be a couple hundred at least,
Oh,
even for like, and I don't even know exactly like what the seating arrangement looks like because I didn't get to watch last week's game. But
I don't understand it. I don't get that. Why?
I think it's like 7,000, and that includes like media team and all that stuff. Like that's the most that can be in there. So it's probably like 5,000 fans, if I had to guess, right?
Here's where that would make sense to me. Like if you're going to see, for instance, like a band that you really like, and it's a big band, prominent band, and they're playing a small venue that fills to 4,000 people or whatever, and it's going to sell out. You pay that money to go see your band in a smaller venue. I guess maybe you could see the Rolling Stones or whoever in a giant stadium with 5,000 people. That would just be weird to me. I mean, it wouldn't be fun. It would feel echoey and not fun. I mean, I don't understand wanting to go to a football game. I guess people have more disposable income than you and I do, but if anything, $200 you spend on a sold out playoff game, I get that. But I don't understand spending that type of money to go to like a dull environment and watch this game on Thursday night. I don't get it. What's special about that besides the fact that you could get
I guess. I don't know if you saw that. I don't know if you saw that the video that went around last week from the Eagles game but you have as a road fan, you have a chance to get in a real good fight with
I sent
an
that
Eagles
to you.
fan.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay, you sent it to me. Okay.
So for $200, you can go sit there and get punched in the face.
Like the dude, it was like, so the Eagles, for anyone who didn't see, like it was a Ravens fan and an Eagles fan. Ravens fan's like 10 rows down. So the Eagles fan had like the higher angle, which is always bad for a fight for the other guy. And so he like slowly goes down the rows and then he just like wails the other dude. And there's like no security anywhere to be found. It was just like, I'm sure that probably opened the Eagles' security eyes. You would think. I don't know, but
I mean,
it was just funny that even with a small, like I'm from the Philly area. I don't think their reputation is as bad as as these videos that go viral. But it's just funny that like they have that reputation and there's only 5,000 fans there and they still got in a fight.
Yeah, like fighting is one thing, obviously, and you know that happens at Eagles games. But this sparse crowd setup. How long before a couple people are caught? Going at it in a different way. Let's be honest. It could happen. It could happen. Sparse crowd. No security around.
Few drinks in you.
Few drinks. Yeah, and I'm not trying to give anyone any ideas, but maybe that'll be a better use of your time than punching somebody in the face. If you want to go ahead and do that.
I would say, generally speaking, I don't understand the appeal of punching somebody in the face or getting punched in the face.
Sure, I mean, especially if you're going to a game and you're going to get kicked out if you do that.
Yeah, and it's going to be easier for the Eagles to identify you to like ban you from coming in theory. So
I don't get it, but hey, it happens.
Anyway, I mean that's kind of the funniest. Like this whole fan thing. Like it's hard to, because like normally when you talk about games, you talk about the factor of being on the road and blah blah blah. But even with like 5,000 fans, that doesn't do anything. Like that's not going to change the outcome of it. Like I don't think the fans necessarily do that anyway. There's definitely a home field advantage in some places, Philly in particular. I think you could say that. But like that's why it's like so weird. This season is just so strange because it's kind of like even the playing field in a weird way.
It definitely has. Like I barely note anymore when I'm writing like who has coming up that the game is on the
even like do the Vegas lines account for that even?
That's
like
I was literally about to wonder that because usually you get, as people may know,
3 points, right?
3 points, yeah, for being at home. But I don't know if they've shrunk that. And that's an interesting. I'm sure it's out there somewhere. But certainly it depends on if there's fans, right? So maybe if you're
Yeah.
at MetLife Stadium, the Giants are only getting 1 point, and the Eagles at home, maybe with 7,000 fans or whatever, getting 2 or 1.5 or something like that. So,
Yeah.
I don't know what's the line on Thursday's game, 6 or something.
I believe it was 5.5. Eagles by 5.5.
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. And I should say, you're seeing a lot of teams get their fans in the stadium. I'm pretty skeptical that that's going to happen at all in New Jersey, especially because Phil Murphy has been pretty hard line with his coronavirus restrictions. They keep adding states to the advisory, and and the numbers in New Jersey have gone up, and so it's that that. I'm sure fans are hopeful because you see around the league, and you see all these the Saints are adding in, and they have a dome. They're going to have some fans in there. They're going to gradually do it. But I would be pretty surprised if there was any fans at MetLife this season.
Yeah, same. And I don't really think it's the end of the world if you can't pay $200 to go be one of 7,000 people in an 80,000 seat stadium.
Yeah.
I think most people would happily live without that quote unquote privilege. So, yeah, it'll be a different environment for sure on Thursday night compared to, I think the last time I was at an Eagles game, I was with you and
playoffs, right? Yeah.
Playoffs. Yep. It was the Seahawks, and remember Clowney hit Carson Wentz, and people.
And Josh McCown played a playoff game, his first playoff game.
Played, and then Clowney.
Wow, that feels like years ago.
Yeah, Clowney popped off. Remember, he was talking about how Eagles fans told him he had a previous beef with them, right? And he should be in jail or something like that, right? And he was like, yeah, these people hate me, and he was smiling the whole time. So a lot's changed for him where he is, and certainly some has changed for the Eagles in terms of the makeup of their team, and they don't look like a playoff team, but as we said at the top, they could wind up back there.
Yeah. So before we spin it because we've talked a lot of big picture stuff. What was there any big picture thoughts that you had coming out of that win? I would say for me, on one hand, the offense I think is still a big problem. The offensive line played a little better. They held Chase Young and that pass rush. But I would say that the defense and Patrick Graham has just been so much better than you could ever expect considering the talent level they have.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you did a good story today talking to Charlie Weiss, who I guess is the entire reason Patrick Graham is a competent defense coordinator. Not really, but Charlie Weiss never shy about mentioning his success, and he certainly had plenty of it. So it's a good story if people want to go check it out. But Patrick Graham comes off that tree and has had a lot of other influences too, and really has done a nice job here with this undermanned Giants defense, and it was on display again against Washington. We were all writing our stories, and people don't know. Some people probably know, but you have to have your story ready for the end of the game, basically. And so I had a line in there about how the two under the radar type guys were a big key to it. Tay Crowder and Kyler Fackrell, obviously on that play, the strip sack. And I had mentioned parenthetically that on a quietly very good defense, and then you almost had to take that out, and I did because of they almost blew the game again at the end.
Because Washington went all the way up the field and then scored a touchdown. Yeah,
right. Yeah. They got their last stand on the 2-point conversion, but
it was a stressful deadline for us. I would say.
Sure. The second week in a row with that, and so they did almost blow it again, which kind of stinks for Patrick Graham because on a play-in, play-out basis, their defense has played really well. If you look at the DVOA ratings, they're in the middle of the pack, which I don't think people would have expected at all.
No, not at all.
But if you just look at the end of these two games, you think, geez, man, they almost blew the game at the end. And they did blow it in Dallas, and their defense can't be very good. But just look at the numbers and look at it as a whole, and he's done a nice job. So that was a takeaway for sure. And the fact that the offense has struggled. Yeah, so the win really masked the fact that the offense has been a mess and continues to be a mess, and probably won't get any better against the Eagles on Thursday.
Yeah, that's kind of the big so they only scored 20 points again. Daniel Jones still only has 3 touchdown passes this year. He threw another interception, and that one, whether it should have been ruled an interception, almost doesn't matter because of the way he was getting sacked, and he just tossed it up in the red zone. He did the same thing against the Steelers, and you can't really throw turnovers in the red zone, that's for sure. I think it was you were kind of jokingly tracking how bad they were in the red zone throughout the game, and it lived up to it. And Jason Garrett still hasn't adjusted and gotten more. I know the week before he was doing some trick plays, but a couple of trick plays doesn't make a creative offense. And They only threw the ball downfield one time in this last game, and that certainly has to change. I just don't get that part of it. Like, I know these receivers are having trouble getting open, but you have Darius Slayton, and Daniel Jones can throw the ball down the field. Like, scheme it up and try and get these guys out in space or something. Like, I just don't get his thought process.
Yeah, I mean, you said they scored 20 points. Their offense only scored 13, and they didn't do anything after the first quarter, because all they had was a field goal and then the defensive touchdown after that. And I think the red zone was 0 of 4, and so they're 4 of 16 or something like that. I think they were 0 of 3 maybe. So I think they're 4 of 16 in the red zone. They're one of the worst red zone teams in the league, if not the worst. They were right down there with the Jets. So Sunday was just a thumbnail sketch of everything that's gone wrong for them. Whether it's turnovers from Jones or the red zone struggles or the lack of the ability or desire to push the ball down the field. You saw some more of the reverse end around type stuff that again didn't work. You did see one thing that has worked, and we talked about this a little bit after the fact, in the zone read stuff for Jones and showing off his footwork. And I get that you can't do that all the time, but maybe the Giants haven't worked that in enough, considering how successful it's been in getting Jones out there on the run. So obviously there's a risk reward there, because if you do that and you get your quarterback hurt, everyone's going to be crushing you for it. So I am curious to see in these last 10 games what sort of adjustments Jason Garrett is able to make, considering his offensive line limitations, and what sort of adjustments he does make.
Yeah, and one thing, we've talked in the past about how it's like difficult to find reasons to criticize Joe Judge because he doesn't call plays and all that. But I will say there's a couple instances in this game where it was fourth down, which is a head coach decision, and I believe it was like 4th and 2 on the 2-yard line. They were on the Washington 2, and they kicked a field goal.
Yep.
And there was another time it was 4th down, and they were on the Washington like 30 something, and they punted it. Like, those are just like, those are like playing not to lose decisions on a team that. And it should be playing to win at all times, because they're not good enough to play not to lose. Like, I just didn't understand the conservative effort there.
Yeah, they took the delay a game to back them up to give them more room to punt. Instead of going for it. And yeah, I don't get it. I mean, in that case, you're reasonably far into the opposing team's territory. If you can't get 2 yards there, what are you doing? And even if you don't get it, you're at the 38, and then you're winning a field position battle there, and you probably should have faith in a defense that's playing pretty well. So that one doesn't make a lot of sense to me, and we just are getting the sense here that Joe Judge can be a little bit conservative, which is interesting because Bill Belichick has sort of developed a reputation in recent years for not doing that. But we'll see what he does going forward. But I think that was the wrong call, and fortunately for him, it didn't come back to bite him.
Yeah, and so something we could use to transition forward off that game is, so they did a weird thing on Sunday where Matt Pert started in place of Andrew Thomas. Andrew Thomas was disciplined for like being late to a meeting the day before, but so they rotated the two of them, and I don't think I've ever seen a left tackle rotation, considering many people consider that like the second most important position on the field. Pert actually played pretty well from what I could see. He graded out really well in Pro Football Focus. Thomas played better than he had been, because he had been maybe the worst tackle in the NFL before that. But I didn't really understand the thought process there. I guess it kind of worked. But the biggest takeaway I had is that maybe Matt Pert should be playing more, whether that's at right tackle instead of Cam Fleming, or whether it's instead of Andrew Thomas. Like, Joe Judge is always preaching about playing the best 11 players, and if Pert is better than either of those two, then he should be on the field. Like, the dude is athletic and he can get down the field, and it seemed like he did pretty well in run blocking. But what would you make of that whole situation?
Yeah, I think you looked at him and he was the type of guy who was a project coming out. 3rd round pick, so obviously well regarded enough to be picked there, but a guy who needed some polish and needed some work, and but had the athleticism, and you really saw that on Sunday. I think the move would be, Cam Fleming, career backup, who's continued to look like a career backup, make him a backup again, and then let this kid play at right tackle. I don't think you pull the plug on Andrew Thomas yet. We talked to a bunch of people for a story last week about Andrew Thomas and where he's at and what's ahead for him. And the general consensus was, he's struggling, and he might not have a great rookie year, but you let the guy play through it. You don't. And that was what I was kind of curious about, why, before we knew why he was benched, you look at it and say, gee, you're giving up on this guy already.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that. He was a little late to a team meeting on Saturday night. But usually that, even the way they handled that was a little curious, because usually a guy would be benched for the first couple series or the first quarter, and then he played the
Yeah.
rest of the game. It wouldn't be a
Yeah, it was a
rotation.
rotation instead. Yeah.
So I guess what's that? Joe Judge basically saying like, all right, well, we're going to give this guy a chance to take your job. Like, I don't think that's realistic. If Pert's going to play, it's going to be a right tackle. So I would expect potentially. Now I don't know. We don't know how much work Pert's gotten at right tackle. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, in practice, I'm sure these guys like him, a backup, will work both sides. But how comfortable are they with him on the right side? And some guys can play left and some guys can play right. That was one of the things that we were able to glean after talking to some of these former offensive linemen.
Yeah,
last
it's
week.
not as simple as just moving somebody.
No, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
you have to use, it's like mirroring completely different hands. So, sure, I think there's a possibility Pert goes back to the bench for this game, especially on a short week, and they go back to the status quo of Thomas and Fleming, especially against his defensive line. You really want to put a rookie out there at right tackle who may not be comfortable. So I think that's the most likely scenario.
Yeah, I will say though, especially for a team that you and I don't think they're going to wind up actually competing for this division. So I would say at some point it'll behoove them to start Matt Pert and just see what they have there at the very least.
Sure.
Start him and Andrew Thomas. Maybe at some point even give Shane Lemieux some time. There's gonna come a point in the season where they need to see what they have in these young guys instead of playing like the veterans that aren't going to be here next year.
Absolutely, I agree, but I don't think that this is
not there yet. Yeah,
no, because it's a short week,
and you don't want to kill Daniel Jones also.
Yeah, you don't want to kill. Yeah, exactly. Not only do you not want to kill the confidence for Pert, but you don't want to kill the body of Daniel Jones.
I mean, we kind of talked about this a little bit, but like, so if the Giants do win this game, the trade deadline is coming up pretty soon. We've talked a little bit about the trade deadline. Like, how do you think that plays into what happens? Because I still don't think they shouldn't be buying. Certainly, they shouldn't trade any draft picks the rest of the year. Maybe if you need to do a player for player trade or something, but like I still think they should be sellers more than pursuing more talent at the deadline. And I'm kind of worried that if they win, they're going to think, could we get this division if we get another piece in here?
Yeah, I think that should be the concern for Giants fans is, Dave Gettleman being overly impulsive about their chances and overly impulsive at the deadline, and let's just not split hairs, but delusional about their chances. So if he trades away picks, I mean, come on. I don't even think he would do that.
That would be brutal. I mean, they traded a 7th for Isaac Yiadom, though. So.
What's that one?
They traded a 7th for Isaac Yiadom.
Yeah, they did, and that was now they're
down
to
5 anymore.
So I could see them trading away, a player or something like a Marcus Golden, where a position they're in all right enough shape, considering he's not a starter. And yeah, I know that Lorenzo Carter's done for the year, but it would be one thing to do that versus trading away like Evan Ingram, a guy who they haven't used a ton, but so also, what are you going to get for him? It's not like his value is super high right now.
I would say the ones that I think make sense to me as guys they can trade away and maybe still compete as much as they like want to pretend like they're competing or whatever would be Marcus Golden, who they don't seem to want to play still. And I think he's still a pass rusher and teams need pass rushers. So maybe you can get him there.
Yeah, he's got a track record.
And then try and dump Golden Tate on somebody. Like receivers get traded all the time, even when they're not being productive. You think that you can get them working in your offense. Like you saw with Mosin last year where they got a 2nd round pick for him. I don't think they would get that much, maybe a late round pick, but Golden Tate's done nothing for this offense. Maybe you swap him for a younger receiver or something like that. But I don't see any value of keeping him around at this point.
No, I think he's been a disappointment, as you wrote right after his fight in LA. He's been a disappointment, largely from the get-go, from getting suspended for his PD usage and having an okay enough year last year, but certainly not up to the caliber of what they wanted as Odell Beckham's replacement and the amount of money they gave him. So, yeah, I think that makes sense. I think Tate and I think Golden would be the guys. I don't think you trade Jabril Peppers or Evan Ingram because you can trade them next offseason.
Yeah, exactly. Like you can try and get their value up next trade deadline if you have to.
Correct, based on need from other teams or injuries at other teams.
Ingram's, I think, especially, like he's a guy that if you get him producing a little bit, like he's on paper, like he's the kind of guy a team would be like, oh, we could really use it. Like, we could really do something cool with him, kind of thing. So he'd be one you want to build up the value of before you dump him.
And basically, you look at Tate, they're probably, they could cut him in the offseason. So it's not like a situation where anyone's going to take that contract.
Yeah. So
next
anything
year.
you can get for Tate right now pretty much is
And
good.
Golden's going to be a free agent. So you can't trade him after this season anyway. And with Ingram, first round pick 2017, so 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So next year would be his 5th year option. It doesn't become guaranteed until March because that's still under the
It's
old.
the same thing with Dribble Peppers because he was a first round pick that same year with the Browns.
Right. So they can trade him to someone who, if they get him, that team will want to pick up his 5th year option and let him play out the year in 2021. So yes, so the Giants can do that before that option kicks in and dump it on somebody else if things work out that way.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we can talk about wide receiver. I guess we can get to like the news of the last couple of days. We'll start with Sterling Shepard. So he returned to practice in air quotes. It was like a walkthrough yesterday. So that means that started his 21-day clock to come off injured reserve. He's been on there since week 2 when he suffered a turf toe injury. They've missed him pretty badly. He's an injury-prone guy, but he's reliable when he's out there. So they've definitely missed a guy who can knows how to get open at least. I'm skeptical that he plays on Thursday. There seems to be some people who seem to think it's a possibility, but I mean the dude hasn't practiced since week 2. But like how big would it be to get Sterling back, whether it's Thursday or against the Buccaneers?
Yeah, I mean, I think more likely against the Buccaneers on November the 2nd, the Monday night game. So not only do the Giants get a weekend off, but they get a little bit extra time because their next game after this one's a Monday night game. And it'd be enormous considering no Saquon Barkley. So at that point, you'd have 4 of your weapons back for Daniel Jones and Slayton and Ingram and Tate and Sterling Shepard. So yeah, the guy missed 6 games last year. This will be his 5th missed game this year. So that'll be 11 missed games compared to 12 that he's actually played in since the start of last year. And this is a quietly bad contract that Dave Gettleman gave out. That a lot of people don't talk about this.
He gave it to him too early
for various reasons. But you look at the numbers in this deal, and it's been bad. And even if they cut him after this season, the dead money, I don't have it in front of me, but I think it's maybe like a $3 million savings and a $6 million dead money, or maybe it's reversed. I think it's obviously more palatable if it's reversed, but I think his cap hits $9 million or something like that next year, which is not terrible. But if the cap goes down, and it probably will, that's certainly a larger percentage of the cap than it would have been. So I understand, bad injury luck, and I understand concussions. You have to set them aside, but sorry, I mean it's a cold league in terms of staying available, and there's nothing he could have done to avoid concussions. I get that you can't be prone to concussions. I guess you can more easily get one if you had one before, but it's not through any fault of his own, and no one's saying it's through any fault of his own. He's not being doing anything to cause this, but the bottom line is you have to be available, and he hasn't been available enough.
Yeah, so he has a $9 million cap in next year. And you're pretty much on the money. If they cut him, they only save $3 million, and they get a $6 million dead cap hit. So
thanks. Yeah,
probably
I had written that a bunch. So yeah,
it's not enough savings to do it. So he'll probably stick around. And then his contract. I mean, then he almost certainly will get cut unless he's like a Pro Bowler next year, before the 2022 season, where his cap hit goes up to $10.5 million. But yeah, I mean, that's maybe not as bad as the Golden Tate contract. Because I guess Golden Tate's played more, but I don't know. Both of those Dave Gettleman handed those both out at the same time, and it hasn't really worked out. And the way they've built this offense around Daniel Jones has not really helped him, I would say.
No, I think that if you even go and look at the Saquon Barkley pick, and I know that's he's the sacred cow for Giants fans, that you can't criticize that pick, but if anyone looks at this team objectively, and a lot of people, in analytics or whatever you don't take a running back there. You don't. And they did. And it hasn't worked out, mainly because of injuries, entirely because of injuries. He's a really good player when he's on the field, but you have to look at what you're getting there versus replacement level quality for either a lower pick or a cheaper acquisition. So it's old school thinking, and you have the Giants where they are offensively right now. So connect the dots if you want.
Yeah, exactly. And then in terms of other news, I mean, I guess it's not minor for this team. So Tay Crowder, who had that pretty much game-winning play, the fumble return touchdown, I guess he suffered a hamstring injury either on that play or shortly after, and he was placed on injured reserve this week, so he's going to miss at least 3 games. He was their starting middle linebacker next to Blake, so it is a loss, even though he's only a 7th-round pick. So the fact that he's so important to the defense kind of says everything. And then in a spot, they signed a guy in Jabal Sheard, who is a veteran. He's had some success as a pass rusher. He was on the Patriots a while back, where Joe Judge and Patrick Graham both were there. So he's like a depth piece for the pass rush. But I mean, it kind of shows you that the lack of talent that Patrick Graham is dealing with when Jabal Sheard is viewed as like a major addition by some people, I guess.
Yeah, and he's not a major addition. So
Yeah.
uh,
He's a rotational pass rusher.
yeah, and at least for most teams, we'll see what he does for the Giants. But I presume that
Yeah,
it would
true.
continue to be the case. But yeah, look, I mean, it's not going to get any better in terms of the quality of player on this team necessarily. It's not a quick fix. Um, and it probably is a fix that's going to be done by someone else besides Dave Gettleman. Like we said at the top, unless they win the division with 5 wins and and they keep them and hang the division champion banner.
Yeah, I mean, what if he goes and gets 10 sacks? Who knows? Who knows? We can. So let's actually look at this Eagles game now. So like I mentioned, like the Eagles are extremely banged up. But they still have that defensive line that has Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, Derek Barnett, Javon Hargrave. Like that would be the area that I'm most concerned about the Giants being able to compete with them. This offensive line trying to block those guys, right?
That's a brutal matchup. I think I
Yeah.
sent to our text service, our Giants Extra text service, something that I came across last night about this matchup that doesn't really bode well for the Giants. The Giants are 32nd in pass blocking, Pro Football Focus, and the Eagles are 3rd in pass rush. And the top 2 teams in pass rush right now are the Steelers and the Bucks, and the Giants have played the Steelers, and then they get the Bucks next after this game. So a couple really tough pass rush groups coming up, led by Jim Schwartz in Philly and Todd Bowles down in Tampa. A couple really good defensive coordinators that will really test this offensive line and test Jason Garrett. His ability to protect Daniel Jones. So that matchup could be a nightmare for Daniel Jones in this offensive line.
Yeah. Fletcher Cox in particular going against like Nick Gates, like
Yikes.
Fletcher Cox kind of flies under the radar a little bit because especially because he doesn't put up like the sack numbers that Aaron Donald does, but he's like a physical and athletic freak, and that's gonna be a real challenge for Gates and even just coming off the edge. If you're playing Matt Purd or Andrew Thomas, you're kind of concerned about that left side too, and so, the Eagles defense is pretty good relative to what the Giants offense is. So if the Giants are going to win this game, it's going to, again, come down to that defense. Carson Wentz was one of the only people that's turned the ball over more than Daniel Jones, 11 times, 9 interceptions, which is crazy. I think he had 7 each of the last 2 years. So Patrick Graham can confuse Carson Wentz, and, they can stop their receiver group, which is kind of full of a bunch of randoms. I guess unless Deshaun Jackson's back, but like if they can force some turnovers early, that would be the only chance I would see them winning this game.
Yeah, they need a little luck to break their way, and they need their defense to do some stuff for them in a big way, like happened against Washington. So, barring that, I don't see any way they win the game.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Let's see. So what was your prediction for this week? What did you have?
I sent to our I filed for our prediction thing.
Yeah, we do picks every week.
Yeah, 31-10 Eagles. That might be high in the 31, but I think the 10 sounds reasonable to me, considering the offense only scored 13 last week and this is a really good defense. So maybe 24-10 or something like that instead of 31. But I think the Eagles win handily.
Yeah, I can't remember what I had, and I can't seem to find it on my email. But I do have the Eagles winning. I'll say for the sake of this, 24-10. I just like again, I just don't see this offense being able to do much against the Eagles defense. Is what it comes down to. All right. Any last thoughts before we get out of here?
No, man. I think we covered everything. I thought it was. It's amazing that a team at 1-5 could still be quote unquote relevant. It's really a funny year in so many ways, and especially for the NFC East. But these next couple games, I think, are where things could really go south for the Giants, especially because of that really just brutal matchup we talked about with the next couple defensive lines that their offensive line is going to play. I just find it hard to imagine that they are going to be able to score enough points in these games to win. I mean, they scored 13 points against Washington, they weren't going to win. They almost certainly weren't going to win. And if they do that again, I don't see any way their defense can hold up. And then they get Washington and Eagles again before the bye week in week 11. But I think this is a case of a team that the next couple weeks is going to slide back, and you could be looking at 1-7 entering that next Washington Eagles stretch starting on November the 8th to the 15th. So they'll get some rest after this week before they play the Bucs, but the Bucs are looking pretty darn good right now. And like I said, that matchup, D-line, O-line for the next two opponents versus the Giants O-line, just really ought to scare Giants fans.
Yeah, and I would say if the Giants win this game on Thursday, then sure, they're in the race. But if they lose it, I don't mathematically they won't be eliminated for a while, but I think you can pretty much call it when you're 1-6, you're not making the playoffs. Like the Giants aren't good enough to overcome that. So
I mean, that's the mathematical things that have to happen for the division champion to be 4 wins or 5 wins. Is hard to wrap your head around, because you got to remember these teams play other teams. It's not like they just play each other in the division.
Yeah.
And that's how they determine the champ. All the wins count the same until you get to a tiebreaker. But so yeah, these other teams are going to probably beat some teams. It's not like every team is going to lose every game.
Yeah. Or if you're the Eagles, you'll tie a few teams, and that's better than a loss.
Yes.
All right, we can wrap up on that note. As always, guys, make sure you subscribe. We're on all the major podcast apps. Leave us some reviews. Sign up for our text message service, NJ.com/text, and we'll get back to you at this time next week. And we'll maybe if the Giants will still be in the race, or maybe they won't. We'll wrap it up on that note. Thanks, guys.